Welcome, age of vintage society. Exotic leading man of American films, famed as much for his completely bald head as for his performances, Yul Brynner masked much of his life in mystery and outright lies designed to tease people he considered gullible. How Yul Brynner made up his own legend with lies and mystery. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Yul Brynner was instantly recognisable as one of the most distinctive looking and sounding film stars of the 1950s and 1960s. His shaved head was a trademark. He gained fame delivering the definitive performance of the lead role in the hit musical The King and I, both on the Broadway stage and on screen. The film remains banned in Thailand because the monarch was portrayed as vain, bad-tempered and autocratic, all words that could equally have applied to Brynner. He played the role 4,625 times on stage and admitted, "The king takes me over." While The King and I was the magnum opus of his career, he did several other films, including The Ten Commandments, Anastasia, The Ultimate Warrior, Westworld, and Future World. He was also a photographer and the author of 2 books. Brynner was prone to exaggeration and invention, causing much uncertainty about his life, especially his childhood. Early in his career he told the press a number of made-up stories about his young life. He was challenged to explain the conflicting accounts of the time and place of his origins that he'd given in almost every interview. He declared imperiously, "Ordinary mortals need but one birthday." The quote is an indication of how assiduously Brynner worked at burnishing his own legend. His name was already a byword for an outre kind of Hollywood exotica. He was the first shaven-headed movie idol, and his gimlet stare, precipitously arched eyebrows, and all-purpose arcane mien saw him equally at home in bell-sleeved silk tunics, pleated skirts, and leopard-skin pashminas, or the darkest outlaw double denim. In a rare moment of levity he described himself as just a nice, clean-cut Mongolian boy. He at least got the middle bit right. Brynner, of course, is not the only actor to portray individuals from other cultures. Hollywood always gave actors a chance to try on new accents, especially in the original golden age of epics and espionage, but only Brynner made an entire career out of it. He became American cinema's Cold War-era ambassador from everywhere, slipping in and out of nationalities and representing the Hollywood worldview. What is particularly intriguing about Brynner, in addition to the diversity of the exotic identities he portrayed, is that his own biography is extremely enigmatic. On screen he covered a staggering range of geographies and social classes, becoming everything from an Indian sultan to a Mexican revolutionary to a Japanese fighter pilot. Yul sometimes claimed to be half Swiss, half Japanese, named Taiji Khan, born on the island of Sakhalin. In reality he was the son of Marusia Dmitrievna Blagovideva, who came from the intelligentsia, was an actress and singer, and Boris Yulievich Brynner, an engineer and inventor of Swiss, German and Russian descent. He was born in their hometown of Vladivostok on 11th of July 1920 and named Yuli after his grandfather, Jules Brynner. Brynner described the important role his family played in the early development of the city of Vladivostok and said that he was enthusiastically welcomed as the descendant of one of the city's founding fathers. He believes that this welcome signified the living emotional connection to the pre-Soviet era that is crucial to many Russians today. According to Brynner, his great-grandfather Yuli was one of the first foreign businessmen to come to the newly established Russian naval base of Vladivostok. Yul Brynner, a native of Switzerland, owned a shipping company in Yokohama, Japan, which he moved to Vladivostok in 1873. Brynner explained that Yul Brynner and his fellow international investors brought in architects from Europe, turning the small naval base into an attractive modern city and giving it the European character that it retains to this day. Today a statue of Brynner stands outside his birthplace. His malleable sense of identity, at times he called himself Julius Brynner, Jules Brynner or Yul Brynner, was surely the product of a peripatetic childhood. When Yuli's father abandoned the family, his mother took him and his sister Vera to Harbin, Manchuria, where they attended a YMCA school. Yul grew up with a variety of languages swirling around the household, including Russian, English, French, Chinese, Korean, Czech and Japanese. With an increasingly chaotic military environment, Brynner's mother decided to move the children to Paris. At this time, in the late 19th century, Paris was the undisputed mecca of the European arts, and the children were enrolled at Lycée Moncel, one of the city's top schools. During this time, Yul focused on his skills as a guitar player. At age 16, Yul dropped out of school to become a musician. He began playing guitar with a group of gypsies amidst the decadent backdrop of Russian nightclubs in Paris, decorated with rich velvet and gilded candelabras. The Russian gypsies gave him his first real sense of family. He soon became an apprentice at the Théâtre de Mathurin in Paris. It was in this creative environment, among those amazing artists, that Yul met luminaries such as Jean Cocteau. Their relationship sparked lifelong rumours of Brynner's bisexuality, and Pablo Picasso. Brynner was noted for his deep, rich voice and for his shaven head, which he maintained as a personal trademark. During World War II, he started working as a French-speaking radio announcer and commentator for the Office of War Information, broadcasting propaganda to occupied France. He also trained and performed as a trapeze acrobat. When a back injury ended his trapeze career, Brynner turned to acting as a profession. At age 20, after a brief 3-month stay in England, Yul travelled with his mother to the United States to continue his studies with Mikhail Chekhov, whilst clothless modelling for renowned photographer George Platt Linz on the side. The pictures revealed that a more than generous endowment could be added to Brynner's swelling list of accomplishments. Yul lived in New York City and began to tour with Chekhov's theatrical troupe. Chekhov cast Yul in a series of Shakespeare plays where he honed his acting skills. It did not take long for Brynner to be cast in his first Broadway role in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and then Lute Song, starring opposite famed actress Mary Martin. After these notable appearances on Broadway, Brynner struggled to find acting work and fell into the burgeoning world of television. In 1950, Yul held a steady job as a staff producer and director at CBS, working alongside Sidney Lumet and his assistant, John Frankenheimer. It was at this time that Yul developed his lifelong passion for photography. Brynner had broken out with his 1956 role as the King of Siam in The King and I, singing and dancing his way to an Oscar. He followed that up with another character who eschewed shirts, Ramses I, in The Ten Commandments. These characters basically cemented his career as the go-to guy for any role that required non-Western features and vaguely accented broken English. Brynner managed to bring a certain depth to these clunky stock characters. His trademark bald head offered a clean slate suited specifically for many roles, one that did not infer any one ethnicity. Even though it was clear that English was not his native language, he delivered his lines with precise enunciation. His accent was ambiguous and always almost identifiable, which somehow made it a plausible trait for all of the characters he played. He lent an air of sophistication to his characters, which enabled him to instill some sense of dignity. American audiences loved Brynner's complexities, his Mongolian good looks and European finishing, his steely tough guy stare and his dapper sensitive guy dance moves, his affable confidence and guarded identity. They ate it up. But Hollywood was changing radically in the 70s. Gritty, character-driven verite was in, and the larger-than-life fare in which Brynner thrived was out. With his brooding expressions and sinuous movements, one could almost make a case for him being the last silent movie star. After almost 2 decades of hits, B-movies, foreign action flicks, Brynner came back in the sci-fi hit Westworld, an early Michael Crichton film. Westworld is a Wild West amusement park where a host of robots interact with guests, acting out scenes from brothels and saloons. In one of his best roles, Brynner channels all of his intensity into the part of a robot gunslinger who duels with the guests, but is programmed to always take the bullet. The audience of Westworld savours the irony of the recasting of his Magnificent Seven gunslinger as a theme park attraction. Of course the robot malfunctions, stops playing nice, and a shooting spree ensues. Brynner's chilling performance takes a lacklustre Frankenstein premise and turns it into a very satisfying experience. The insipid sequel attempts to mine the other side of Brynner's career. In 1959, Yul was extremely moved by a visit to a refugee camp. This experience prompted him to immediately accept an offer to serve as a special consultant to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. During his tenure, Brynner toured several refugee camps in Europe, the Middle and Far East, documenting his experiences. Yul married 4 times and had 4 children. His first marriage was to actress Virginia Gilmore. They had 1 child, Yul Brynner II, born in 1946 and nicknamed Rock. Rock is now a historian, novelist and professor at Connecticut State University. In 2006, Rock wrote a non-fiction book about his father and family history entitled Empire and Odyssey, The Brynners in Far East Russia and Beyond. Yul's second wife, Doris Kleiner, a great Chilean beauty and socialite, married Yul on the set of The Magnificent Seven. Together they had 1 child, Victoria Brynner, in 1962. Victoria is a brand consultant and lives in Los Angeles. Brynner's third wife was Jacqueline Thion de la Chaume. Together they adopted 2 Vietnamese children, Mia Brynner Campbell, a high school English teacher and mother of 2 beautiful children living in West Palm Beach, Florida, and Melody Brynner, a print producer in New York City. In 1983 he married his 4th wife, Kathy Lee, a 24-year-old ballerina from Malaysia, and remained married until his death. Brynner's triumphal arrogance was an essential part of his appeal, and he gave it free rein as he entered his imperial phase, both on and off screen. It survived intact through multiple indignities, from side ponytails to flannelette headpieces in the 10 Commandments, and it burned up the screen in The Magnificent Seven, fueled by Brynner's constant feuding with co-star Steve McQueen as to who was topmost dog. For one scene, Brynner fashioned a plinth of dirt to stand on so that he could tower over McQueen, only for the latter to surreptitiously kick a little more of it away each time he paced past. Eventually Brynner hired an assistant expressly assigned to call out any instance of McQueen's attempted scene stealing. His demands became legendary. While filming the World War II drama Morituri aboard a freighter, he stipulated that a landing pad be built on the ship so that a private helicopter could take him ashore after each day's shoot. Likewise, he had a special lift installed in the theatre where The King and I played, big enough to accommodate his 20-foot-long white limo, to spare him the daily ordeal of rubbing shoulders with eager fans. His dandishly cut suits, all roped shoulders, generous lapels and jetted hacking pockets, emphasized his imposing figure and urbane air. He even gave his morning porridge a foppish twist, adding a chunk of butter and salt. In his final acting role he appears in Future World during a dream sequence that takes place in the mind of the leading lady. His gunslinger floats into the smoky scene and twirls her around and around in an elegant ballroom dance. On October the 10th, 1985, Yul Brynner died after a long battle with lung cancer. He found a lump on his vocal cords. The test results showed that his throat was fine, but he had inoperable lung cancer. Although Brynner had quit smoking the previous decade, he'd taken up the habit at the tender age of 12. Radiation therapy left him breathless and sidelined at the various performances that he insisted on honouring. The packed houses were a testament to his enduring popularity. 9 months prior to his death, Yul gave an interview on Good Morning America expressing his desire to make an anti-smoking commercial. After his death, the American Cancer Society turned a clip of this interview into an anti-smoking public service announcement, which was one of the most highly recognised and acclaimed PSAs ever made, resonating with millions around the world. Brynner was quietly making his preparations for departure, embracing Buddhism, and recording a dramatic public service announcement to be broadcast after his death, warning of the dangers of nicotine. Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke. Whatever you do, just don't smoke. He was a singular figure, and one that all his life Brynner was proudly conscious of cutting. I have never played anyone I thought was like me, he once said, with one suspects just the right amount of move over mere mortal presumption. Yul Brynner was one of the few film lead actors born in Asia to develop an enduring career as a star. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Yul Brynner?